This lesson is called Supporting Details, and we're going to learn how to locate supporting details. We talked about it very briefly in the last lesson, but now we're going to focus on how to pick out supporting details. We picked out the main idea sentence in the last lesson, and now we're going to pick out the supporting details. If we can pick out the supporting details, that will help us with comprehension, because we'll understand what the paragraph that we're reading is about. And then, like I said in previous lessons, once we learn how to use these strategies in the paragraph, then we can take this strategy and read it in essays and help us with comprehension, and then into larger sections of reading that we may have across the curriculum in your science classes, in your history classes, psychology classes. And once we get to that point and get through all these different strategies and lessons, hopefully when you have to read a chapter or when you have to read a paragraph, you won't have to read it 4 or 5 times before you understand what the author is trying to, what message the author is trying to relay to you, or what your instructor wants you to get out of that particular passage or whatever you're reading. Okay, so again, I like to use PowerPoints because I can show students exactly what I'm trying to talk about, and I can also give them examples of things that they might see. And I think that PowerPoints kind of help you, especially if you are a visual learner. And when I teach, I try to connect with all the different learners, not through just lecture, but I try to connect with them, with my visual learners as well. And then we try to practice and do kind of hands-on, and then we'll have quizzes or tests at the end. Okay, so as I said before, we're going to go over to the PowerPoint, and I'm going to give you some examples and hopefully provide you with strategies that will help you pick out the supporting details. So we said in the last chapter that supporting details explain or prove the main idea. They help develop the main idea. Basically, your supporting details, they're going to give us the meat. They're going to give us, you've heard it's the meat of the paragraph. They're going to give us all the things that we need to know, the facts, the statistics. They may give us examples or reasons, descriptions, definitions. So there are a lot of different things that they're going to give us, and there are many, many more things that we could add to this, but for the most part, these are the things that you will most likely run across. Okay, so supporting details explain, develop, or prove the idea, the main idea, or remember we said we can also call that the topic sentence. Now when you're dealing with supporting details, there are 2 types of supporting details that you need to know. The first one is your major details. Okay, major details are just the major points that explain or support the main idea. So they are directly connected to your main idea or your topic sentence. Now, the minor details are going to offer more of an explanation to the major. So, for instance, if you give me your topic sentence or your main idea sentence, and you give me your first thing that you support, your first support would be your major details. If that's not enough to help me understand what you want me to know, I might throw in a minor detail to give you further information, and that's why we call it minor detail. It just adds to our major. Okay, but you do need to know the difference between the 2 of them. When you're trying to pick out your major details, it would help if you knew some of these transition words or addition words, because they assist the reader in helping them locate the major details. Some of the ones that you're going to see would be one, first, second, another, finally, furthermore. And as you can see by the way they sound, they add more information which add supporting details to the paragraph. Okay, so when you see these things, most of the time you can guarantee that if a word like these are in front of the sentence, that's going to be one of your major details. We use 3 techniques to help us locate supporting details. Many of these you're pretty much familiar with. Outlining, we make outlines all the time. If you've ever written an English paper, if you've written a speech, most of the time you do an outline to help you get ready to put your paper together. Most instructors require that you have an outline before you can turn it in. And then we have mapping. Mapping is kind of like brainstorming. And I'll give you a definition for each one of these. And summarizing is just kind of the way it sounds, but there are a few more steps to it. So I'll break each one of these down, show you an example, and give you a definition for them as well. This is what outlining looks like. A definition for outlining is when you show the relationship among the main idea, your major supporting details, and your minor supporting details. So basically it would look similar to this. You have your main idea or your topic sentence at the very beginning, and then you have your major details, and then your A's and your B's are going to be your minor. Now in most cases, when you're writing a paper, the rule is that if you have an A, you have to have a B. Well, we're just using paragraphs. So sometimes they may not feel necessary or feel that if there's a need to add a B, they just may have to give you one minor detail and that may be it. There are other times when they won't even include a minor detail because they feel like the major detail has given you enough information. Remember, the minor detail just adds more information to help you understand what point they're trying to get across. So that's outlining. Basically, I remember it as when we use letters and numbers to show how the main idea and the major and minor details are related. Okay. Mapping, like I said, you've probably used this before as a kind of a brainstorming activity. It involves when you use lines, circles, basically shapes to show how the sentences are related. And this is just a quick thing I put together to kind of show you what it would look like if we took a paragraph and put it in mapping format. And I usually, give a test where you have to do the mapping and the outlining because it breaks everything down and shows you every sentence in that paragraph. So this would be your main idea sentence, your major detail sentences, and then these would be your minor details. Okay, so these would be pretty much the format of the paragraph: your main idea, your major details, and your minor details. And you can see how they're all related. The major details are directly connected to the main idea. Minor details just explain this major detail that they're dealing with. Okay, these minor details are not going to give you information about this major. So they're only directly connected to give you further explanation of what this major detail was about. Okay, so mapping is when you use shapes to show how the sentences are related. And then we mentioned summarizing as one of our other techniques that we were going to use to help us pick out major and minor details. But first of all, you need to know the definition of summarizing, and it's when you take a large amount of information and reduce it to its most important points. And you guys do this all the time. When you go to a movie, we can't tell our friends every single thing about the movie, but we reduce it to its most important points. And even though it's a large amount of information, we're going to the most important points. You're doing the same thing with paragraphs when you're summarizing. But there are 2 steps that I would like for you to remember when it comes to summarizing. When you come across summarizing, 2 steps. First thing is locate your key definition, your definition and key term within the paragraph. Okay, you might have to do this in a psychology class, in one of your allied health classes. It may even be a computer or math class. But this again goes across the curriculum. You can use these strategies in any of your reading assignments. Okay, so the first thing again, locate the definition of the key term within the paragraph. Once you have located that key term, then select an example out of the paragraph that shows you what that key term looks like or what it means. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. This is a paragraph. Obviously, I need to know what regression means, so I have that highlighted. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to follow that rule, 2 steps to summarizing. Your first step is figure out the key word and the definition. Here's our key word. Our definition is right here. A return to childlike behavior and defenses. And then you just look for an example. Okay? It could be adults who fail to cry when their arguments don't go the way they planned. Other adults who throw temper tantrums. So you find the example that's going to help you remember what this word means. And then you have just summarized this paragraph. Okay? The way you would do it, if I gave a quiz on it or a test on it, I would ask you what the word regression means. You give me a short definition, and then you give me an example of what it looks like. An example would be adults whose arguments fail may cry to get sympathy. That has just summarized that paragraph, giving me the 2 steps, locate the key word and the definition, and give an example of what it looks like. Okay? Here's another one, and I think we'll put this maybe in the outline form. Okay? Video games are not all bad. In fact, there are many benefits to playing these electronic games. Playing increases young people's motor skills. It gives them practice in problem solving. It can improve their ability to see spatial relationships in their mind. It can also be therapeutic for children who have attention deficit orders. Okay? So I guess video games are not all bad. The way we would put this in outline form is we would have our main idea sentence or our topic sentence at the very beginning. Here's our first major detail, second major detail, third, and fourth. Okay? So remember we said we have our main idea sentence is always at the beginning, and we could use the Roman numeral thing with this like we do with a normal outline, but I just wanted to number them so you could understand where my major details were. Playing increases their motor skills. It gives them practice in problem solving, can improve the ability to see spatial relationships in their mind, and it can be therapeutic. So these are all benefits of playing electronic games. And again, that's how you double check. What are the benefits of playing electronic games? I just gave you 4 benefits. Those are your major details, and they support my main idea sentence. Okay? This one, we'll put this one in mapping form. Okay? There are a few differing theoretical points of view on television violence. Supporters of the catharsis theory contend that viewing scenes of words experiencing violence indirectly may make the individual less likely to commit a violent act. In contrast, the supporters of the stimulation theory maintain that seeing scenes of violence help to stimulate an individual to behave more violently. The last group, the supporters of the null theory, maintain that fictionalized violence has no influence on real violence. And again, we can do these in any of those formats. We could put this in the outline format. The only one that we would have trouble with would be summarizing, because we don't have a particular key term. But we could put it in outline form, or we can put it in the mapping form. This time we're going to use the mapping format. Okay? So the mapping format, remember we said we use shapes. We could use boxes, circles. We could even put the main idea in the middle and then have our supporting details going out. So the way we do the shapes or the boxes, it really doesn't matter, but we need to show how they're connected. Okay? So there are differing theoretical points of view on television violence. That's our main idea sentence. We had 3 differing theoretical points of view. Our first point of view was the catharsis, so that's one of our major details. The second was the stimulation theory. The third was the null theory. And as you can see, got more information under here. We said the minor details further explain the major. So catharsis theory, we don't all know what the catharsis theory is, so we explain what the catharsis theory is by using our minor details. Okay, the stimulation theory, and we explain using minor details, and null theory as well. We explain this by using minor details. And if we can set this up in one of these formats, look how we break this down and determine what this paragraph is about. Isn't that a lot easier when we take it and separate it and break it apart, and then we can now comprehend what they want us to know? They want us to know that there are differing theoretical points of view, and then they discuss the different points of view or the theories, and then they explain what those theories are. That's how we use supporting details to break down a paragraph and help us figure out what they want us to know. Okay, it's very similar to if you've ever diagrammed sentences. I used to love diagramming sentences because for one reason I thought that was fun, and for some reason my children seem to think that's kind of crazy to enjoy diagramming sentences. But you know, I did love diagramming sentences, but I do think it also helps when we can find some format to where we can show where each part of that, whether it's a sentence or a paragraph, has a specific role, and when we can separate those roles, it will help us understand a little bit better. Okay, so this is our mapping form, and then that's our mapping form. And the next chapter or the next lesson that we talk about, we've kind of already touched on our strategies for paragraphs and picking out the main idea, the topic, and supporting details. So the next chapter or the next lesson that we will be reviewing or learning strategies for is when we actually put together a paragraph. How we can put together a paragraph and make our paragraph flow smoothly so that the people reading it will enjoy reading it and it's not choppy and it's not boring. So that will be our next lesson, and we'll cover that, and it will be called transitions.